Okay. This first warm-up problem is which family? Linear, right? Because it's just x. Right? Which family is not this middle one? Quadratic. Which family is the right one? Absolute value. You guys are so smart. Good job. All right. So our parent function for the linear, remember, and again, if you want to write y equals on this stuff, you can. All right. So that's going to be right up through there or down this way. Right? What's that plus 3 telling us is happening? 3 which way? Up. When you're doing it to the whole thing, remember, that's vertically because we're adding it. The whole thing is just x right now, so we're going up 3. So everything, all these points that I just did, you could just go up 3. And then it would be this green one. And you can check on your calculator if you want. You can do your y equals x and then y equals x plus 3 if you want to see what's going on. Okay. Questions? Okay. The parent function for the quadratic, okay, this was linear. Let's go with this. This one was quadratic, which is 0, 0. Remember, that's his y equals x squared, right? That's the basic parent rule for quadratic. So 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 squared is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Negative 1 squared is positive 1. Negative 2 squared is positive 4. Negative 3 squared is positive 9. So there's our parent function for the quadratic. Okay? Now, in this one, we didn't add 3 to, didn't add it to the whole thing. We just subtracted 2 from the x. Okay? So when we're just doing it to the x, remember the x axis is the horizontal one. So we're moving right and left. Okay? And what have we talked about when it's minus 2? Which way are we going to go, actually? Right to, the opposite way, right? So all this stuff's going to come over here, too, all these points. So this point comes over 1, 2. This one comes over 1, 2. This one up here comes over 2. That one there comes over 2. Up here goes over 2. Up here goes over 2. All right? So that parabola would be there. Okay, you want to check it on your calculator. We can do that. So we have x squared. So I'm just put x squared and delete those numbers. And then we got parentheses x minus 2 squared. First one will be our parent, and the second one will be it moved over 2. Again, if you want to see the table of values that go with it, your XY table, you can hit second graph, and it'll give you the table of values. You can always do an XY table to graph something, right? Any graph at all, if you have the rule, the function of the equation. Okay? Questions on that one? All right. Over here we had absolute value, right? Parent function is y equals the absolute value of x. So the absolute value of 0 is 0, absolute value of 1 is 1, absolute value of 2 is 2, Absolute value of negative 1 is positive 1. Absolute value of negative 2 is positive 2. So it's at V. Okay. What is happening here? Negative there to the whole thing, right? So that's a reflection about which axis? X. We're taking negative of the whole thing, negative of the y. It's a reflection about the x. So all that things do is just flip. They go, if I reflect that point about the x, that goes down there. This one is down here. 0 stays at 0. The one here goes to there, the one there reflects there. So all it did was flip it upside down. Okay, again, if you want to look at that, y equals, absolute value is math, right arrow for number, and then it's the first one, ABS, hit enter. And there's our x, close it up. And then again, math, number, enter for absolute value, and then it's, oh, I forgot the negative. It's x again, I'll get that in a second. There it goes. All right, I got to insert a negative. All right, so there's our parent function, and there's our reflected one. Okay? So that was just more of section 1.1. We've been doing section 1.2. And here's our answers. There we go. All right, let's do this. Do one at a time. All right, so number 1 says translation 5 units right. So that's when we just mess with the x. So 5 units right is minus 5. It's the opposite of what you think when we're going horizontally, right or left. So what is minus 5 plus 7? I didn't finish that one. I should have. 2, right? Okay. Simplify, and I didn't simplify. All right. Number 2. All right. It says 2 units left. So again, we're just doing it to the x. So 2 units to the left means I'm going to write where at this spot? X plus 2, right? Well, since this is inside the absolute value signs, the 1/3's in there, I can distribute that 1/3. If there was a number out front of the absolute value signs, I couldn't distribute it into there. But since it's already in there, I can do that. So if you thought you couldn't do that, you can actually. So that's the answer to number 2 when it's simplified. Absolute value of 1/3 x plus 2/3. All right, number 3, translation 7 units down. That's to the whole thing. So we're just going to subtract 7 on the end of our function. Oh, so number 4 I don't even have. So or 3 and 4, I guess, I just added 7. I'm sorry, I subtracted 7. And what's 2 minus 7? Right, so our answer is negative 2x minus 5. So I don't have number 3 and 4. I went to 5. Number 4, 6 units up, I'm just going to write the whole thing and then put plus 6 on the end. And then I can add 6 to the negative 1. So I have the negative and then the absolute value of x plus 9. And then the plus 5 when I add 6 and negative 1. Number 5, we're reflecting it about the x-axis. That means I'm multiplying the whole thing by negative 1. So I can distribute the negative 1 times a half. All right, is negative 1/2 x. And the negative 1 times 8 is the negative 8. So this red one's the answer. remember, I was just rewriting f of x equals as y equals. You can think of it like that. If that helps you, just writing y equals on all of these, you can go ahead and do that. Questions so far? Okay, number 6, we're reflecting about the y. So that's not in there. Let me do that one now. Let's go to this page. All right, so number 6, I'm just going to write it as y equals. We got 4 plus the absolute value of x plus 1, and we're reflecting about the y. That's when I change the x. Okay, so I just take the opposite of the x. So, that told us to make it g of x, but you can write y again if you want. So I just do that. Okay? There's nothing else I can do to simplify it. All right? Okay, for number 7, a vertical shrink by 1/5. We just multiply the whole thing by 1/5. So what is 1/5 times -5? -1. Thank you. That's -5/5. So -1x, or just -x, would have been the answer to number 7, but I don't have that one on there. Number 8, it says vertical stretch by a factor of 4. We multiply the whole thing. So I put parentheses around the whole thing by 4, and I can't take the 4 inside the absolute value. I just put it out front. Guess it didn't finish it there. So it's 4, absolute value x plus 3. And then I can go 4 times 2 and make it plus 8. Being kind of crazy over there, aren't they? All right. Questions? Am I going too fast? Jaden? Helping a little? A little bit. Good. We're getting there. One step at a time. It's all right. All right. Number 9. I got that one. Oh, this was did I cross that one out? Didn't I? Yeah. All right. Because that's the ones that get us more confused. So we're not even going to worry about that. Let's do this. Okay, number 10. It's a vertical shrink by a factor of 1/4. So again, you can multiply the whole thing by 1/4. So I put parentheses around the whole thing and then distributed the 1/4. So it's -1/4, absolute value of 8x, and then 1/4 times -4. Remember, that's what's happening. So 1 times -4 is -4. 4 times 1 is 4. -4 divided by -4. I'm sorry, -4 divided by +4. That's how you get that -1. Okay. Number 11. It's a vertical stretch. I changed it from horizontal to vertical. Didn't I? Okay. By a factor of 3, so I multiply 3 by the whole thing. So let's do that over here. This is number 11, right? All right, so we have this, y equals x, a linear. Write a function g whose graph represents a reflection in the x-axis. So a reflection on the x means I take a negative of the whole thing, which would be just negative x, right? John? Yes, you may. Followed by a stretch, vertical stretch by a factor of 3. So I go 3 times negative x. And then translation 5 units down. To do each one separate. So negative 3x minus 5 would be the final answer. So just do one at a time, simplify. Don't try to do it all at once in your head. Sometimes you get confused then. Questions on 11? And then the last one I wanted you to do was 13. Let's see if I've got that one. 12, we decided not to worry about 12. All right. So 13, there's the parent function. Okay. And then the g was that. All right. So the negative in front of the whole thing came out front. It wasn't inside by the x. We're reflecting it about the x-axis. If the negative was inside with the x, we would have been reflecting it about the y-axis. Okay? We got the 1/2. So we vertically, I was writing compression last year, but vertically shrink, trying to do what the book says, by 1/2, because of that 1/2 there, a fraction between 0 and 1, right, is vertically shrinking it. And then minus 6 is we moved it down 6. So you were just supposed to write all the transformations that happened there. So we had a translation, a reflection, and a shrink, vertical shrink. Okay? Yes? Yes, you may. So, how'd you do on that? Decent? Better than you thought? Yes? No? Good. All right, let's try one more, then I'll give you the weekend off. How's that sound? Monday, then I'm going to give you a practice quiz. We'll go over Tuesday, and your first quiz will be Wednesday then, all right? So let's do one more. You can just do it on the back of the paper you got, or on whatever. Okay? Let's do a quadrat. Well, we haven't done any quadratics. We're going to get to those. We've just been basically working on absolute values and linears, right? So let's do, we'll say y equals 3 times the absolute value of x minus 1 plus 2. Let's do 2 transformations. Let's move it right 2 and reflect about the y-axis. All right, and we'll do it. We'll go over that in a couple minutes, and we'll be done for the day.
still inside. That's the other side, right? 'Cause that was inside.
Oh,
Don't
you
pull
have
it
some.
Good job. You guys are good.
Yeah, we're gonna come. Yeah. No. No.
All right. Good job. So the first thing, one at a time, right? So I've got my y. Whoa. Don't want that. We've got our y equals. Let's just do right 2. So am I doing it to the whole thing, the y, vertically, or am I doing it to the x horizontally? Right and left is horizontally, correct? So I'm just doing it to the x. So if you want, just so you know you're doing it to the x, you're just doing it there. Now, right 2 is that plus 2 or minus 2? That's minus. When we do horizontally, we do opposite of what we're thinking. Okay? And simplify now. Is there things I can simplify? Yeah. All right, so let's simplify in there. So we did that one, just one at a time. Okay, so we did our right 2. Now we're reflecting about the y. So am I doing it, changing the whole thing, the y, or am I changing just the x? Just the x, right? It's the, when we reflect about y, we're changing x. When we reflect about the x, we change the y by multiplying by -1. So my final answer is probably supposed to do g of x, but again, I'm not worried about that though. Just going to change that x. Nothing else. Most of you got that. Very good. I think we're getting there. All right. Thanks for your attention and working. You can have the weekend off.